What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I wanted to do a bit more of a casual video and talk about the 9 different kinds of people that you tend to run into in the credit card and points and miles and travel circles. Everybody plays this game for a different reason. Some people simply want to take their families on a trip or two every year with their points, while others want to leverage the true power of rewards points in order to fly around the world in business class and first class as often as possible. And I think if you're new to the game, then it can be useful to think about all the different possibilities that credit card points can give you and think about which of these possibilities might be best tailored towards your own personal travel goals and interests. I actually got the idea for this video after watching a similar video by my American colleague and potential doppelganger, Sebastian from Ask Sebi. I mean, I've had many of my friends say to me, hey, did you know there's this guy who looks exactly like you who talks about credit cards on YouTube? And this ended up being one of the channels that inspired me to start my own. Ask Sebi's video was more about the types of people you encounter in day-to-day life in the general public and their attitudes on credit cards. But in this video, I wanted to focus on the different attitudes and the different interests among the people who actually play the credit card game to help you figure out which bucket you might fall into. But first, let's roll the intro. Let's begin with what I'm going to call the credit card skeptic. And this is going to be the vast majority of people out there who don't really see the value in credit cards, or maybe they've heard about the value in maximizing your credit cards, but they're just unable to overcome that natural skepticism as to whether or not all of this works. I mean, I hear it all the time when I talk to my friends who aren't really into this stuff, and I'm sure many of you do as well. They'll be like, oh, isn't it going to ruin your credit score if you keep applying for and closing credit cards? Or maybe they'll say, oh, I don't know, it just feels a bit unethical or scammy to just maximize the credit card benefits that are widely available. Or they'll be like, oh, it just feels like too much work. I don't want to keep track of everything. I just don't want to deal with it. And then after I take my business class and first class trips, they'll be like, Ricky, you gotta teach me how to do this, man. You gotta teach me the secrets. And I volunteer that information, and then all of a sudden their eyes glaze over and they're like, it's too much work, it's not for me. So yeah, the credit card skeptic, I mean, what can you say? They're lucky enough that they already know that it's possible. They just have that natural skepticism that they haven't really overcome, and as a result are sadly missing out on a whole bunch of benefits. I mean, at the end of the day, I can't really blame them too much. Everybody's got their own interests and what they're into and what they want to spend their time doing. And for many people, getting into the nitty-gritty details of credit card deals just doesn't really fall into their interests. And that's totally fine too, because as we all know, if way too many people got into this space, then the credit card companies and the loyalty programs are probably going to devalue things a lot faster. So in some ways, having a bunch of people, the majority of people out there, be credit card skeptics is probably a good thing. So the next category of people that you tend to meet is what I would call a minimalist in credit cards and points. And these people, they're aware of the possibilities that exist if you really want to maximize your credit cards, but they choose not to. They choose to keep things simple and maybe keep 1 or 2 or 3 credit cards that they use on a regular basis and just optimize within that simple framework. And I actually think there are very good reasons why somebody would choose to be a credit card minimalist. I mean, like I mentioned, not everybody has the capacity or the interest to spend hours going into the nitty-gritty details of all the juicy opportunities out there. So if you want to just keep things simple, figure out for your spending patterns which 2 or 3 credit cards might allow you to get a nice enough sign-up bonus, as well as a respectable amount of points through your daily spending without you having to put too much work into the whole process, then you're happy. If you're a minimalist type, then you're probably looking for, 1 credit card that you can use on bonus categories such as dining and travel, and then maybe 1 credit card that you can use on general purchases, on any type of purchases that gives you a solid return, and then maybe like a Visa or MasterCard to accompany an American Express card in case the retailer doesn't accept American Express. And then you're probably happy there. You might be willing to open or close 1 or 2 credit cards every year if you think it'll get you closer to one of your travel goals, but any more than that and it's starting to feel like a lot of work for you. Ultimately, if you're a minimalist and you know about the possibilities with credit cards, but you're not really willing to put in the work, then you can probably get enough points for, one beach vacation every year or two, but you probably aren't too enthusiastic about traveling the world extensively. Because if you were, then you would be willing to put in the work and travel more. Speaking of which, let's now talk about the people who love to use their credit cards and their points to travel. And even among travelers, there's a whole bunch of different people that you might encounter. So let's begin with the frugal traveler. Frugal travelers find it important to see as much of the world as possible while spending as little money out of pocket as possible. And these people tend to be, students, retirees, or just average middle-class people with a frugal mindset. If you're a frugal traveler, then yes, you're going to be very interested in all of the different credit card sign-up offers. You're going to be very interested in the ability to earn points on money that you would have spent anyway. But also, you're going to have one eye on making sure that you're not spending more than you otherwise would have spent without the credit cards. I find that if you're playing the game with a frugal mindset, then you're always keeping very close track of how much money you've actually spent out of pocket on things like credit card annual fees, award taxes and fees when you book a flight with points, and fees incurred in manufactured spending and stuff like that. And you might find it a little intimidating, the idea of paying a huge amount of money per year in credit card annual fees to get back a larger return in terms of the sign-up bonus and the benefits on that card. And I know that I myself, when I first started out, I was very frugal and I too found this pretty intimidating. And for me, it was the leap from that mindset to a more value-based mindset where I'm thinking about the value I'm getting from what I'm doing that really took my game to the next level. But even as a frugal traveler, if you don't want to take that leap and end up paying more money than you otherwise would, then you can always stick to the no annual fee or first year free offers out there and still rack up a very respectable number of points, which you can then redeem at a very good value using the award chart sweet spots out there and still get yourself some very nice travel for very little money spent out of pocket. The next type of traveler we're going to talk about, I'm going to call them world travelers, okay? And these are like the pure travelers who just want to see as much of the world as possible and who want to use points as just one of many tools to accomplish that goal. These types of travelers tend to be very well versed in all of the award programs and award chart sweet spots out there, because by taking advantage of these sweet spots, they can take some incredible trips to a whole bunch of places that they've always wanted to go. So they'll be really interested in racking up enough points to book things like the Aeroplan Mini Around the World, which lets you visit 2 places or even 3 places for the price of 1, or even add in a whole bunch of long layovers in there as well. Or for example, the British Airways multi-carrier around the world, which has a few sweet spots and tricks of its own. Or maybe even the other round the world awards, like the Cathay Pacific multi-carrier chart, which lets you visit 5 places for the price of 1. The ANA Round the World Award, which lets you visit 8 places, or even the Aeromexico Round the World Award, which lets you visit a stunning 15 places on a single round the world ticket. So the true world travelers are really all about using the credit cards to get the points, and then using the points to get access to the award chart sweet spots that will then allow them to see as much of the world as possible. And by leveraging some of these really incredible sweet spots that exist out there, they can fulfill their travel goals much faster than if they were to just travel the normal way by buying flights and hotels. So we've talked about frugal travelers, we've talked about world travelers. Now let's talk about family travelers, who are the people who want to travel the world with their family in tow. And to be fair, this is a demographic that I probably don't pay enough attention to, because it really is kind of a different game when you're earning points as 2 people and trying to redeem them for 3 people, 4 people, or 5 people or more. You often need to put in double or triple the amount of work into earning points through the credit cards as somebody who's just traveling on their own or as a couple. And this, combined with the fact that the airlines often don't release, 3, 4, 5 seats in business class on all of their flights, means that oftentimes it makes the most sense to just redeem points for economy class instead. I recently spoke to someone who managed to book herself and her family of 6 on an Aeroplan Mini around the world in business class to places like Africa and Asia, all on the same flights. And I can't imagine the amount of work that must have gone into finding those flights, because it's really, really hard to find 6 business class seats on the same flight. So with a few exceptions like those, once you start to travel as a large family, a lot of times it makes more sense to just go ahead and redeem for economy, because at least that way you still get to see the world as a family. If you're primarily a family traveler, then you should also look into taking advantage of things like companion fares, which allow you to book the first passenger at the published cash fare and then get a second passenger thrown in for a very, very low base fare. These are things like the WestJet companion fare on the WestJet RBC MasterCard, or maybe the Alaska Airlines companion fare on the Alaska World Elite MasterCard. They'll help you save a lot of money if you're traveling as a large group. So I would say that frugal travelers, world travelers, and family travelers are the kind of people who like to travel, who are kind of attracted to the credit cards and the points very organically. But then, among these people, some of us become molded by the credit card and the points to become a different kind of traveler, and that's what I would call the aspirational traveler. Now, as an aspirational traveler, you're all about maximizing the luxury travel. And you're all about getting as much, and most importantly, as many different types of luxury travel as possible while spending as little money out of pocket as possible. But the difference from the frugal traveler here is that spending as little money as possible is conditional on getting to experience that luxury. So you're more thinking about the value that you're getting in redeeming your points and trying to use as little points as possible to unlock as luxurious an experience as possible, or flights and hotels that would otherwise cost as high an amount as possible. Aspirational travelers can often be guilty of treating all of the world's airlines as a huge game of Pokemon. You gotta catch them all. So if you're talking to a fellow aspirational traveler, you might say something like, "Oh, have you done Qatar Airways Q Suites yet? Oh, you have? Oh, have you done Emirates First Class yet? Or Singapore Airlines Suites Class? Or maybe even Etihad Apartments?" It's really about sampling as many of the world's best airlines as possible. Now, a frugal traveler might say something like, "Oh, I would never actually pay money to fly business class or first class, so maybe I shouldn't actually use my points for that. Maybe I should just save my points to travel in economy so that I can keep traveling in a frugal way." But here's the thing. If you ever did want to fly business class or first class, there's no better way to do so than to use points. So the aspirational traveler recognizes the fact that points are best suited to flying in premium cabins, because on paper, that's where the best value comes from. And for all other types of travel, like flying in economy every now and then, that's when you can pay cash and save your points for their most valuable use. For a lot of people, the aspirational side is probably what attracts them to the game, because after all, they might not be able to afford business class or first class or staying in amazing hotels if it weren't for the points, but now that they have the points, they can make that part of their lifestyle. Now, speaking of the luxury lifestyle, the next category of people who are into the points is going to be a very small but notable segment of people who are actual rich people, the big shots out there. Most big shots probably don't even need to care about the points in the first place, because they already have enough cash to go ahead and pay for whatever travel that they want to take. But then again, a lot of big shots have that mindset where it's like they don't want to pay more than they actually need to. They like to save money and to optimize, and that's where all of the points come in. After all, if you're a big shot and you have the choice of paying $20,000 for Cathay Pacific first class to Asia, or you have the choice of buying 70,000 Alaska miles directly from the program for about $1,400 US and redeeming those miles for Cathay Pacific first class to Asia, then obviously the latter choice is going to be more appealing as long as you understand how the whole process works. If you're a big shot, then you probably also don't want to spend too much of your time figuring out how all of the award charts and award redemptions work. You probably just want somebody to be able to book the flight for you using the miles you have. So that's where a service like points consulting comes in. Just saying, for any big shots out there. Anyway, let's move on and talk about probably the opposite side of that spectrum, and that's what I'll call the cash people, or the people who are all about taking the points and cashing it out for monetary gain. If you think about it, all of the different credit card offers out there and all of the different ways to generate points can eventually result in a sizable balance of points in your account. And at that point, these points have a definite value, right? And in many circumstances, they do get traded for cash. So what I refer to as the cash people, they don't really even care about travel in the first place. They don't really care for the fact that the points can potentially unlock 6 cents per point, 8 cents per point, 10 cents per point in value. They'd rather exchange those points for cold hard cash, even if it's at a lower value of, let's say, 1.4 or 1.5 cents per point. They're basically treating the credit cards and the points as a side business or a side hustle. So they'll spend time getting the credit card offers, manufacturing spend, earning the points, and then they'll find a way to cash out these points into cold hard cash that goes into their bank account or their savings account. Now, even though I don't fully agree with this approach, because I would of course rather redeem my points for travel as a world traveler, as an aspirational traveler, I can see its merits, because the amount of money that you can earn from these points per year can make a significant impact to many people. I know many people who are earning like 7 figures in points per year, and even if we were to take a modest valuation of that 7 figures, let's say 1 cent per point, that's still a 5-figure income. In many cases, that's not even taxable because it's rewards points, so it can definitely be a huge deal for the people who are more concerned about cash. Now, the final category of people who are super enthusiastic about the credit cards is people like myself, bloggers, YouTubers, Instagrammers, people who create content about all this. I, of course, started out with the princeoftravel.com website, and then I launched my YouTube channel to talk to more people about the joys of traveling the world on points and help more people experience the same things that I've experienced. And I think that's true for everyone in this space. We all feel very fortunate to have unlocked the opportunities with the credit cards, and I think we've all had that moment of, wow, more people need to know about what's possible here. But let's be totally honest, altruism isn't going to be the only thing that drives the bloggers and the YouTubers and the Instagrammers. We're also thinking about how to build a viable business out of teaching the world how to travel on points. Obviously, as a content creator myself, I'm always looking to deliver as much value as possible to my audience, but there's always one eye on the business side of things as well to ensure that I can continue to deliver that value to my audience. So yeah, I think that's something that it's best to be upfront about, and the next time you hear some guy telling you something like this, how do you use airline miles and frequent flyer points to travel the world at a fraction of the price? Make sure to think critically about what's motivating them. All right, well that brings us to the end of these 9 categories of people who I think are super into the credit cards and the points. I hope you enjoyed the video and it kind of made you think about which categories you might fall into, and even among the categories that you don't fall into, what can you learn from their perspective as well. If so, please do hit the like button and subscribe to the Prince of Travel YouTube channel. Just click the subscribe button below the video. And you know what it is, let me know in the comments which category or categories of people do you see yourself falling into, and I'll see you in the next video. Aspirational travelers are often guilty of treating all of the world's airlines as a game of Pokemon. You gotta catch them all. So if you've flown, oh Jesus, to ensure that I can continue to deliver that value to my audience. To deliver!